Hey everyone, back here again. We're doing another Evangelion review. Today we're going to be doing episode 12. This episode is actually going to start a little bit differently because it doesn't really focus on the kids, and it's going to do what we always do, or what the show always does at this point in time, is give a little bit of backstory about a character. This one actually is highly involved with Misato Katsuragi's character. Now, the beginning of this episode actually starts off in a flashback. We learned about what happened at Second Impact, Misato's connection to it, exactly how she got the cross that she always wears around her neck, and we find out a little bit about her father in this part. And then, actually, I forgot the name. The first part of this episode is called "The Value of a Miracle Is..." Now, the first part of this episode is a lot about Misato. We find out since the last episode, episode 11, that Misato has been promoted. She is no longer Captain Katsuragi. She is now Major Katsuragi. Matter of fact, we find out also through Ritsuko that Fuyutsuki and Gendo are so pleased with her job that they both actually left Japan for the first time, and they kind of stated. They also kind of state how both Shinji and Asuka matter of fact, everyone really isn't paying attention to Misato because all the characters seem to be dim-witted to the fact that she was promoted. I don't know how that happened, but the two characters who actually do note it is Kensuke and Toji, and Kensuke is the one who actually brings it up. So we also have a part of it where they're doing a synchronizing test, and Ritsuko is, really proud that Shinji's syncing test is getting better and better. And this leads to another character trait of Asuka Langley Soryu, that she doesn't like other people getting praised over her. She needs to be the focus of attention at all times. And that's going to be something that becomes a detriment to her, especially later on in the show when things go down. So Shinji gets praised by Ritsuko in front of Asuka. Asuka obviously doesn't like it. Once again, she's a very prideful character, so that's not going to go down with her, especially if she's not the one getting praised. We have a funny dinner sequence that Kensuke and Toji got together, where we see the class president also there because she's about the only person who can stand Asuka. We see Kaji and Ritsuko there. All kind of very funny plots, just like building characters together. We have an interesting scene. There are a lot of small interesting scenes, especially in this episode, that make up who the characters really are. Because there's a scene where Shinji's in a car with Misato and she's asking him, "Oh, you're not used to getting praise," and things like that. And he was like, "Well, this is why I do it," which leads to another scene later on where Shinji asks Asuka, "Why do you pilot the Eva units?" And Asuka simply says the answer you would expect from her character, and why when other people get praised, it wounds her, because she's doing it to show everyone she's better than them. Which is kind of, it brings you to the old adage, pride goeth before you fall. Remember that. That will be very important later on. Oh, also, when they do show the flashback at the beginning of the episode, I forgot to mention this, they explain why Misato, which is in the, I think it was episode 10, when they go to the bathhouse, There's a big scar going down the abdominal area of Misato. This explains why she got it. So, and in true Eva fashion, there's also another scene at the beginning of this episode where you see where Fuyutsuki and Gendo are. What they are, they're at the South Pole, which was the epicenter of Second Impact. And you see them on the naval base, the naval ships that Asuka saved in her first appearance. But they're also carrying this very long item on the ship. It's literally almost the size of a battleship. Once again, that will come into play a little bit later on in the show. Once again, a lot of foreshadowing, especially in the first half. First half is all set up for Neon Genesis Evangelion. Second half is, depending on how you look at it, the payoff to it. But they get into an interesting conversation, Fuyutsuki and Gendo, about this is what happened to man. And the exchange is very well worth watching. The end of the episode really ends with, of course, like everything else in this series so far, the introduction of the next angel, which is the 10th angel, and he appears above space. So that's kind of that part. There's not really much else that goes on. There's a short conversation before the act split where Ritsuko really tears into Misato because Misato has a plan on how to defeat the angel, and Ritsuko goes, that chance has 0.0001% chance of working. Misato, of course, pulls out her trump card and says, well, I'm a major now. I'm in charge. You have no choice. You have to follow it. And that's kind of how the episode ends, or this half of the episode. The second part is called, she says, don't make others suffer for your personal hatred. I'm not going to really get into what happened to Misato at the beginning of the episode or her storyline because I try to do these shows non-spoiler when he's not here. He's here, but he's a different story. He can't say anything. He can't say anything either. Second half, Misato explains the plan to the kids. She's gonna, once again, this episode, all 3 units are gonna be deployed. What's gonna happen is, it looks like the angel's above the orbit, and he's gonna drop down and try to destroy Nerve Central. So Misato tells the group the plan. They look at it and go, wow, what are the chances? She explains to them there's very little chance. They kind of go, why are we doing this then? Misato at the end of it explains that if they do succeed with this, that she'll take them out for a steak dinner. So much for saving the world. Here, you get a meal. The kids, of course, not stupid, but they're doing it because they know it's their job. Each one of them knows what they're doing. Asuka's doing it because she's the best. Shinji does it because he feels he has no choice. Rei is doing it because she's Rei, and at this point all we really know about her is the fact that she's just an obedient lapdog with no pride and no soul. That'll become something different a little bit later on. I had mentioned the conversation with Asuka. It actually happens in this half and not in the first half, so that's a correction on my part. But we do get a conversation with Misato and Shinji explaining the dynamics with her and her dad and why she became a part of Nerve for the most part. Once again, not going to retort it. Go watch it. It's another very interesting scene, especially when you get to delve deeper into the psyche of Misato. And a lot of these characters are very rich and have a lot going on. There's a comment I want to make a little bit later on, so I'll save it for then. End of the episode kind of goes along with everything else, but with a different twist. Gendo finds out what happens. Misato thinks she's going to get chewed out. He actually praises her and said, you know, that's what you did, exactly your job, and you did what the angels are for. I mean, what the Evas are for. And then he also goes along to praise Shinji in a very odd thing, because Gendo really doesn't do that ever. So that's that part. And then we get a nice scene where the whole group is eating ramen food. Asuka, for once, being the sensitive type, because we find out that Rei can't eat meat, or she refuses to eat meat. They go to a ramen place that has, I guess, vegetarian ramen food, I guess. And, you know, the three children and Misato eat up, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. We're not really halfway through the series, because we got one. It's 26 episodes, so we got one more before the half. But I will say this: if you look at the plot lines and the way the show is constructed, while we do get introduced to many characters, we're also introduced to them kind of naturally. It's not like we get an exposition dump, or we get an episode where someone is introduced and then right afterwards we learn their whole backstory and why they act the way they do. This isn't the show for that. The show introduces each character in the way that's suited for them, and then going along we get bits and pieces of what they're doing. Like, we'll learn about the whole pride thing that, you know, I've been talking about for the last couple of episodes with Asuka. We're starting to learn a little bit more about Misato. She gets breaks ins and outs of the story. The battle with the angel isn't the greatest. This is more about character development for Misato and learning about her motivations, while at the same time building up some of the things that are going to happen with Asuka, while also introducing what Shinji thinking about this, because a lot of the time he's kind of the passive aggressive person in the show. He's there because he has to be there, but you don't really get into his psyche and why he's there. There are times in, you know, early episodes, especially the third episode, the Hedgehog Dilemma, where they do get into that, but most of the time it's either him reacting or being active to what the next character is doing, or just because he's, you know, he feels like he has to do it, so he just takes in the situations as they are. So, you know, this isn't the most action heavy. The action isn't really that spectacular. It's not at all. It's more world building, character development. Next episode will be kind of interesting, because we get our first angel who has no body. So, until then, fly you to the moon.